selling a good grass-fat animal has to be timed right. We don't have grass growing all year long here, and to be at its best, an animal needs to be gaining weight when it's killed. So we've got about 2 months in the spring when that animal's really putting on the weight, and we try to kill our own beef right about at the top of that time. And I've sold beef to people and had them killed or killed them at that time, and it seems to work pretty good. But people have to know that grass-fat meat is not going to be quite as tender and juicy as a steak that comes off of a steer that's been in the feedlot for 3 or 4 months. There's more fat in it. It's a different kind of fat. It's an omega-6 oil that's in that fat rather than the omega-3s that's in the grass-fat beef that's not fed a lot of grain. A feedlot steer is pushed so hard that they're not, I won't say as healthy, but they're a little bit different than a animal that's just out here growing on the grass and growing slow. They push them right up to the max to get them to gain and put that fat on and marble upright. And that's what makes those steaks so juicy and tender, is having that fat interspersed amongst the meat. Marbled, they call it. I can't get that in my beef, to be honest. It's perfectly adequate for me. I like it. I'm used to it. And as far as buying that beef from a rancher, the biggest problem is getting it killed and processed. There's a lot of mobile slaughterhouses around. A lot of them are busy. You have to have a reservation for literally a month or two before it's processed. They don't like to hang them as long as I hang them because their lockers are full and they like that turnover. And if you can get them to hang at 10 days, you're lucky. I hang mine 3 weeks, and it makes a difference.
Is that because like the meat kind of breaks down?
Yeah,
the longer it's hanging there?
tissue's starting to deteriorate. If it's nice and clean when it goes in the cooler and it doesn't taste bad or anything, but it is starting to break down. Yeah, that's the only way to describe it.
So you would say if someone does find a grass-fed beef, first of all, prepare, it might taste different than they're expecting compared to store beef. And in what way? Just like more like an elk, or more like a game type of animal, I guess, just leaner?
Maybe a little bit, but it doesn't taste like elk meat. Elk meat is way leaner, even than the grass-fed beef. And deer meat is too, although a good fat buck can get a rind on him that's pretty thick. And some people don't like that because it has a flavor that tells you it's a good buck. But I like it. I've eaten a lot of it. Elk is a milder meat. Even the bulls, they don't seem to have a big flavor deal like the old bucks do. Aaron and I stopped. We went to a funeral here a few days ago down in California. We stopped in Redding at an Outback and had a rib steak. And it was huge, and it was thick, and it was very, very juicy. And I can't duplicate that on grass. I just can't do it.
How much beef do you eat?
I eat at least half of a big steer every year, and half of an elk, and probably half of a deer too.
Just you and your wife?
Yep.
Wow. So basically, most meals. Probably...
I'm a carnivore.
Yeah. Okay. What do you eat besides beef? That's a better question.
Oh, I eat a salad. I eat a lot of salad, in fact, and I eat tuna. Uh,
Huh.
I hardly ever eat any bread. I don't eat much that has flour in it at all. I eat a lot of eggs.
How long has your diet been like that?
A long time.
Wow.
But I'm diabetic, and I have kept my sugar under control with this diet, and it seems to work for me.
Yeah. Well, there's just not much sugar in the diet, it sounds
No,
like.
but I eat a lot of fat. I eat a lot of butter. I eat a lot of olive oil. Years ago in the 40s and 50s, they came up with this food pyramid that was based on grain. And in my mind, it made generations of Americans fat.
Yeah.
And they still, the powers that be want you to stop eating beef.
Yeah.
But you can stay pretty lean on a meat diet. Whereas if you eat a lot of grain and fat and pasta, or not fat, but grain and pasta and stuff like that, that's a grain base, that's what you feed a steer to make him fat. That's what puts all that grease on him. And I think it's the same way with humans, although probably more so than that, people don't work as hard as they did. So they can't burn that carbohydrate energy off. I'm happy with my diet. I like it.
Well, and grains and breads are so much less expensive. So for a lot of people
True.
who are shopping at a grocery store, you got to pay a heavy price if you want to have a diet like yours.
They could if they shopped better,
Yeah.
because there's lots of specials. We haven't raised any pigs for a long time, but when they have a boneless pork loin for $1.80 something, I go get one or two and chop them up and make pork chops out of them and put them in the freezer. They have chuck roasts and stuff that make beautiful steaks, and they're not super expensive. Sometimes they'll be under $3, you know.
Sugar and also grains, it's carbs, I guess. It's so addictive, and like for me, a lot of people, it's just more of a habit than anything else, because it's like for snacking, you know,
It's great.
It's right there.
Yeah.
So my question, what do you snack on anything like throughout the day? And if so,
Very
what?
little, but if it is, it's cheese or something like that.
Huh.
I eat a lot of nuts.
Huh.
I eat almonds and walnuts and pecans and stuff like that.
Are your meals like big dinner and small lunch and small breakfast, or what's
Actually,
like the allocation?
I only eat 2 meals a day now. That's part of the letting your system rest from the food, and after you've been 6 or 7 hours, your body starts digesting the fat that's in the body because it runs out of nutrients in your stomach, and so it starts utilizing your fat supplies, and it seems to work. And without the carbs, I don't get hungry. People don't realize that, but that carbohydrate thing it boosts your blood sugar way up, and then it runs out in 2 or 3 hours. Man, I'm hungry. I got to have something to eat, you know. So I eat some more of it.
Yep.
And it's a kind of a vicious circle.
It is. It's a total trap.
Yeah.
A total trap.
You ought to try it sometime. Just cut it out for a while. Just stop eating it.
I'm concerned, honestly, about like my willpower, because it's so. I've never really dieted, or like I've just got good genetics.
But you're young and you're.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, but any moment, these bad habits that I've built are gonna blow up in my face, probably like within the next year. But the point is, it's like I don't know. It's like kind of. I hope. I wonder if I can. You know, I know a lot of people
You could,
feel that
Nate,
way.
because if you get that out of your system, you're not hungry anymore.
Yeah.
I'd almost guarantee it. It's really strange, because since I've started this, I'm eating even less meat than I did. I'm not hungry.
Wow.
I used to wake up just so hungry I couldn't wait to get breakfast, you know.
Yeah.
Now, well, you know, and even at lunchtime, I'm rarely just. I used to come in and just, man, I have something to eat here.
Yeah, that's me. It's just a habit more than it's like a ritual more than anything else. Like even if I'm not, lots of times I'm not actually hungry because I've been snacking, but I still know, well, it's 1 o'clock. That's time for me to eat a huge meal. And so I just do, even if I don't actually want it.
Well, you kind of put this aside and keep it in your little memory box there, and someday when your belly starts to grow a little bit, and well, your dad's been. He has never fattened up, though, really.
Like I said, I'm lucky to have his genetics.
And
obviously,
Gregor's the same way. Yeah. How he never fattened up.
Yeah, but they both work and are active, and like they have a muscle that is burning calories, and I. So, anyways, they're probably more active than I am. Even I work at a computer a lot, and so that's just. And I know a lot of the viewers. That's their life also. Like if they were building fences and framing houses all day, that'd be nice, but they're programming or running software. That's
part of our obesity problem. We've stopped intensive labor.
Yeah. Is raising beef doable on a hobby level? Can a person have like 1 or 2 cows if they know nothing, or is it take so much equipment and expertise that don't bother unless you can go big? Or what do you tell someone who wouldn't mind trying to raise their own?
The first thing you need is a good fence. That's paramount. If you go to the sale and buy a calf or something, a lot of times he's just come off his mother and he's looking for her, and they're real hard to keep in because they want to go someplace and find their cow. Okay, so you've got a good fence. You have to have a decent amount of grass, and you can supplement. And feed is a really good way to make an animal gentle and keep it coming to you. If you feed that animal at 5 o'clock every night, he's going to be standing there waiting for you at 5 o'clock. They have a timetable. My cows are waiting for me in the morning when I go to feed. Another thing that is a problem is, say you've got a really tender-hearted wife and 4 little kids, and they've become very fond of this calf.
Yeah.
And they go out and they scratch it and they love on it, and mama is feeling kind towards it too. Well, come slaughter time, you can't kill Billy!
Yeah.
I can't eat that!
You have a pet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got to get around that.
So you said a lot of grass. Like what does that mean? A lot? Like 1 acre per cow, or what does it take?
That's subjective too.
Okay.
Acres are so different.
Yeah.
And an acre of really good subclover or some kind of clover and ryegrass mix will keep a calf, keep a young animal. Again, you want to time that so that animal's going to be ready to kill sometime in June or so when the grass is really at the best. Maybe into July if it's the right kind of grass and in the right place. Or if you're not into grass-fed beef, you can start giving him a little grain along about there, and you can stretch that time out a little and put some more weight on him. I don't think there's any problem with the information you'd need, and if you bought that from a rancher that had the equipment or a sale barn and were able to deworm it and maybe vaccinate it and do all the basic work that we do to our cattle before you got it, it would probably be all right. And you wouldn't need any big amount of equipment. Some of the wormers and stuff now, if it got to be a problem with parasites, you can just pour on their back.
And goes through the skin?
It's a systemic that goes into their body and kills.
Wow.
Kills external and internal parasites.
Well, that seems way more doable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Huh. Some people probably would object to that, but it's not natural.
Yeah.
You know, but neither is a belly full of worms either.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that are not natural that doesn't mean we want to have to experience them.
So anyhow, it can be done. It just takes a little preparation, a little thought.
So good fence and grain, you can float it with grain if you don't have quite enough grass.
You bet. But and it wouldn't hurt to give it a little grain or some kind of candy, hay, some kind of treat to make him come here every day. And
how much does a calf cost? Like, I know that this is a moving target, but generally, what does it cost to buy a calf?
$500-$600, maybe $700, depending on how big he is.
And does it take how many years, or is it just 1 year till that animal's big enough to slaughter?
If you had a 700-pound animal that you bought, you could kill him next spring.
Okay, so you could in kind of 1 year.
Yeah.
And how much beef is delivered from one animal like that to a freezer? Like, how do you quantify the amount of beef that like is actually wrapped and packaged and edible?
Okay, he'll kill someplace around 60%. Now, the grain-fed animals yield a little better than that. The grass-fed animals don't maybe yield quite as much, but somewhere around the 60%. So if he weighs 1,000 pounds, you're going to get 600 pounds of carcass, which in turn cuts down to maybe 350 pounds of actual meat that you'll put in the freezer, because there's lots of bones, there's lots of waste.
Yeah.
Now, as an individual, you don't have much of a place to go with that. The packing houses have a market for all of that stuff. So that's part of their profit margin. You just got to eat it, you know.
I wonder if you can actually get ahead, like let's say like a homeowner, DIY homesteader type. I wonder if it's any less expensive to do their own cow as opposed to just division of labor, and by the time it's all said and done, it may be more of a hobby or learn something new than actually like get a good deal on beef. What do you think?
Probably it is, because you could go buy half a carcass.
Yeah.
From the right place.
Yeah.
And probably save a little money.
Yeah, exactly. And you could have it the moment you need it and not have to wreck your family vacation if there's a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else we're missing about that footage? Anything in particular about that footage to point out? How much does that big bale of hay weigh that you put in the truck?
Somewhere between 1,300 and 1,500 pounds.
Wow.
Depends on how they put the alfalfa up. And those were weighing right at 15. That's pretty nice hay. It's fine stemmed, and they clean it up pretty good when they don't tromp it into the mud. But sometimes we get so muddy here where we're feeding that they lose some of it.
Where is that grown? Right around here?
No.
Where's it from?
Over in eastern Oregon, Christmas Valley, Klamath Falls, someplace where they are going to suffer for water this year and probably not have enough to keep it going.
And then you order that from them and they just bring you like, a barn full right up to your barn, or do you got to kind of go pick it up yourself?
No, I get it hauled in.
Yeah, cool.
I have a friend that's got a truck, and that's what he does, is haul hay and haul lumber and stuff. So
nice.
Last year we got 3 loads. I was anticipating a real bad year because we've been so dry, and we got good fall rains and had lots of feed going into the winter, and I've still got probably almost a load left, which is going to be good because it's going to be high this year. The water's really short over there. It's not a very profitable business right now. These cattle have been down for the last 3 or 4 years, and hay is going to go up quite a bit this year.
Yeah.
It's going to be over $300 here, I think.
We can join the club with everything else. So
yeah. Yeah, well, my hay guy's, he's been right at $5, $4.90 something for off-road fuel, and it's costing him $1.25, $1.50 a mile to drive that truck.
Yeah.
So he's raising his rates, and the guys over there are paying more for diesel for their equipment, and they're going to be damn lucky if they can get enough water to keep their alfalfa alive all year.
What do you do with your cows? You just sell them to a market once they're at that age? You just like send them straight to someone else's problem, or do you have some system?
I sell them either to a livestock market or to an individual. I have a neighbor over here that buys them some years, and he will keep them for a year or so, and then he puts them in a feedlot himself.
Oh.
And he's done really well by keeping the cattle clear through and owning them till they're killed and sold that way off what they call off the hook.
Do you know, you got 80 cattle, do you know each one kind of like when you go out there you can recognize the one you want, or do you kind of just, are there only a small handful you can kind of remember?
I can remember most of them.
Yeah.
I used to have 300 and I knew every one of them, but I was with them all the time. I had an argument with my dad one time. I said something like, such and so's missing. He said, what do you mean? Well, that cow is missing. He said, how do you know that? And I says, well, it's just like she's one of my family. I know when where I last saw her. I know what she should be doing. And when you're with those cows all the time, they each have a personality. You know who they are.
Yeah, especially when you were there when they were born.
Right.
You remember the day they came into the world.
And we found her finally. She'd had a calf and got paralyzed. And they pinch a nerve in their back, and their back legs go spraddled. And this is in their pelvic bones where they have to move them around to get that calf out. I got her on a sledge. Was able to get fairly close to her with a little cat, and I built a sled, and we got her up on that. I brought her home, put her in the barn, and I happened to put her in the stall that I milked my cow in. My cow wasn't fresh at the time, my milk cow. And the cow finally got up. Sometimes they don't. You save about half of them, and sometimes you don't. And so my cow was getting ready to come fresh, and I needed to move that cow. Well, I didn't have a corral in front of the barn, and I thought, well, she's old, crippled, and I can just open this door and push her out. Well, she was kind of mad at me anyhow, because I think she thought I'd been torturing her all that time, because I was lifting her up over these tongs and stuff. And at one time, I had a good enough arm I could hold a cow if I got a hold of her by the nose, just like that. And when she came out of that door, instead of being nice and gentle and wanting to just totter over to the other, she come out of there on the fight. And I grabbed her as she went by, and she flipped me around, and she pulled that arm out of the socket. And for some reason, my fingers were locked up in her nose. And she's dragging me along there and stepping on me. And my dad's hollering, turn her loose, turn her loose. Well, she drug me away, and finally she came loose. And I figured, well, she doesn't need to be in the barn anymore.
Wow.
And my dad was pretty handy. He grabbed a hold of that arm, and he pulled it over, and he drug it down, and he snapped it, and it went right back in the socket.
Holy smokes.
And man, it felt good.
Pulling a shoulder out of a socket with all your shoulder muscles holding it in, that's got to be quite a tug.
Yeah, it was.
You got like a bulldog jaw, like system in your hand, like you were incapable of letting go.
Somehow I locked up. The funny part is I was in the Marine Corps Reserve at the time, and I was due to go down there to Pendleton for a month for my training. And I got down there, and of course they give you a physical. And they said, something's wrong with your kidneys. You got albumin in your urine. What happened to you? I said, well, I had a cow get down on me. Kind of beat me up.
Just punching your kidneys with her hooves.
Well, yeah, mostly stepping on them.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they kept me in the hospital a couple of days, and then everything was fine. They let me go finish my training.
When your shoulder popped back in, was it like good to go, or was it still all sore and stiff?
It was fine.
Wow.
It was a little sore, but it hurt so bad when it was out that it was, okay, yeah.
Jeez Louise.
It hurt.